Welcome to my first video of what I'm calling Biblical America, the True Holy Land. Now, this is not something that I would have remotely thought I would be discussing or believing if you talked to me 2 to 3 years ago. But through different circumstances and different research, I've come to completely change my views and come to the belief that through resets, some very powerful individuals and secret societies, we have essentially been told what I believe are lies. And it's understandable, especially if you know the history of the Holy Land, places like Jerusalem, and how many times certain locations have been fought over for land, fought over for resources, fought over for relics, for gold, for control of ancient information and history. Kind of don't blame those who made this decision. Now, I don't expect many people to believe me right off the bat, but if you're open-minded and you have some time, I hope you enjoy the information that I've found, and I try to put it together in the best way that I can, from art, maps, petroglyphs. Even in the future, I'll dive into language and different ways that this information has been encoded and hidden. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't even start out to believe any of this. I was just a fan of The Curse of Oak Island. And one day, one little piece of information popped up that got me curious. And if you know much about The Curse of Oak Island, the TV show, it's been going on for quite a while. And they're on this island, this area, where there's quite a bit of evidence as there's been a long time history to the island. And from what we can see, there's even connections that go back to Knights Templar from some of their findings. And to begin, I'm showing you a combination of the island, as well as on the left-hand side, a map. Now, this map was shared on season 4 of The Curse of Oak Island. It was brought in by a researcher by the name of Halpern, and she had done a lot. She had done a lot of research on a specific French noble family by the name of La Rochefoucauld. If I'm saying that correctly, probably not. My apologies. But this particular French noble family has quite the interesting connections to this area. Now, this map, if you look through it, actually, and the dates on it essentially state that it was from 1300s, and to be, even more specific, 1347. This particular map on the left-hand side that makes the perfect map of Oak Island. Now, I'm not going to get into too much about this map. I'm just showing you the connection. Rochefoucauld family, who have connections to Knights Templar back in the 1100s, who went to the Holy Land, and who are well documented to be connected to the Knights Templar. So now, what I'm going to show, though, I don't believe has been seen on the Curse of Oak Island, and that's moving forward. But I want to point out one thing real quickly. I want you to keep an eye on this particular triangle here, which is the marsh area. And you'll see that reason why in a couple pictures forward. But let me move forward. Now, this particular coat of arms, scroll on a little bit here. This particular coat of arms is from early 1500s of La Rochefoucauld family. It's quite interesting because it has such amazing connections to the Americas as well as to some really interesting ancient looking individuals, and as well as we'll get closer, you'll see that these are maps. These are hidden maps of Oak Island area. And in fact, this particular bottom area here is a representation of parts of Oak Island. And I'm not going to tell you which part that gave me that really got me very interested in digging deeper. And, from there it became just quite the rabbit hole. But a very small piece of this opened up my mind to start doing some deeper searching. But as you can see over here, it's very interesting that looks to be a map of the United States is on the neck of this particular individual, who's, I guess, some sort of royalty with the crown. Now it's interesting because this is obviously not supposed to be a very pretty looking image of an individual or a well done. I mean, it's pretty morphed looking face. And there's reason for that is because this is a map. Many pieces of this are maps to this area. But having a family crest, coat of arms, La Rochefoucauld, a French family, and this is from early 1500s, like 1510, if I remember correctly. Having the entire United States mapped out is pretty interesting, especially since Columbus wasn't supposed to, come there until the end of 1400s. Tell me the entire map of the U.S. was already mapped out in early 1500s. Now, take a look here. Look really closely. You'll notice that these ancient individuals, long beards, actually show to have yarmulkes on to represent Hebrew here as well. So the representation of ancient Hebrews. Now, let's come down here. Now, this map here is essentially right across from Oak Island. Oak Island's this direction. And here is, if you go to see Oak Island, which Google is starting to play games with, and they're covering up with these really weird, broken images and long covering that makes it very difficult to see this area now, ever since I've been starting to talk about it. But as you can see, this C structure is very key. C structure. And I'll show you in some other French noble art, and actually not just noble, but actually French royalty art, how the C structure is very important. But as you can see, it has some connections as a map right in here. It even has this little area right in here, and this piece up here. Now, let's go deeper so you can see how it really connects. And I want you to pay attention to this, as I showed you in my first image of showing the map of Oak Island, the marsh, and essentially get to that in just a minute here. Now, within this particular image, you'll notice that it has a leaf within it. And on that leaf, it's a maple leaf. Now, let's move forward. And obviously, we know maple leaf in Canada. Now, look at the eye. Very interesting eye formation, right? For one of the ancient Hebrew looking or ancient individuals with the C structure. Well, just so happens the C structure is down here, right? Here's Oak Island. Look at this lake up here. Makes the perfect image of the eyes. So you're telling me, oh, and then this section right here, you can see it. It's right there. So this, what is essentially a coat of arms for, or a family crest for La Rochefoucauld family from early 1500s. And then the very first map I showed you was from the 1300s from the same family showing Oak Island. They pretty much have this entire area mapped out and hidden in their family crest from the 1300s going up to the 1500s. Now, let's continue to move forward because we have a lot to cover. As I mentioned, I wanted to point out this area in here, which is basically a swamp kind of area, the marshes. Right there in the lake, you see it. Here's the marsh that I showed you at the very beginning with this section. They've been working in this on the Curse of Oak Island for a long time, and I hate to tell them this, but they're literally on the wrong part of the island. They need to be. It's like the areas that they're going to really find anything is not owned by them, but it's, in my opinion, on lot 5 and lots around it. I'm not going to get into how I know that, but there's quite a bit of evidence. I might cover that on a later. But they've fallen into the trap essentially, and that's why they're going to have a very hard time ever finding anything. But anyway, now I wanted to share some additional royal family and additional French royalty to show you the importance of this C structure. Okay, this is basically the dynastic group portrait of Louis XIV. And now, why is this important? Once again, this piece right here, the C, but you'll see in just a minute how it connects to the Oak Island area. So, not only do we have him pointing, and you have the structures in here. You have this little doggy down here that actually matches this island. But this whole image of the royal family is essentially a hidden map as well to different islands where I am certain specific treasures have been identified, ancient treasures that were passed down to the French and then taken by the English when the English came in the late 1700s and took over this area. And we'll get into some different English and British as well as French painters and artists in some later. But I just wanted to show the importance of the C structure. And I'm going to show you something here in just a minute that's pretty crazy. So we have this this royalty, French royal image from 1700s when they controlled France. Controlled Canada, and that makes up quite the nice maps and stuff. And it's I've had to follow this map very closely, but in this image, there's a very hidden thing. I'm not going to say where I'm certain it was either located or is still located, but it's very biblical. But it is in this, and I'll show it to you. You got to kind of have to move around the image to find it, but it's right here. It's a golden calf. You see this hidden golden calf that's in the image, very tucked away. And in my opinion, it could represent a golden calf, or it could represent something much more um, important historically and biblical, and where that might have been buried at one time. But you can see it. It's a golden calf, the head of a golden calf, and it was very buried into the image. I had to follow it very closely to see where it was pointing me. All right, so we've established the potential of this area being well connected to Knights Templars and French noble families and French royal families, um, and it goes much deeper. At first, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was just they were just coming here to bury treasure. I never thought that I would go much deeper than that, and I just thought I was onto something. But it kept getting deeper and deeper, like a puzzle. Now, I was watching a PBS special. It was basically Secrets of the Dead, and they covered the Lost Gardens of Babylon. As you can see, it's written right here. Now, on that PBS special, they showed this map of the Lost Gardens of Babylon, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. Basically, I realized what it was pretty quickly, that this is essentially a map of the east coast of Canada. This is Quebec area. This is Nova Scotia, Ontario. All right, then you get up into the U.S. and the Great Lakes. Now, obviously, you can see it. You can even see the roundedness of this, just like this. I think that, long ago when this map was created, there was different water levels in the Great Lakes, but you can absolutely see how this was connected. It just, different. The water went a little bit differently back then. A little bit higher level lakes and stuff in this area. But you can see the connections quite easily when you really look at them. Basically everything. Inlet here. So, what is this pointing to? This shocked me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what are you talking about? I thought this was just going to be a land where, Knights Templars were just taking treasure from the Middle East, not that this was actually Babylon, and that ancient Jerusalem and different things that we're going to get into could be actually in the Americas. Man, that never even remotely came across that thought in my mind. Let's keep going. So this is the foundation rock at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, modern day Jerusalem. And this is Quebec. I mean, this is unbelievable to see the connections and, see how this area jumps up in elevation. And that's exactly what this area does. It goes up to, 1900, even up to 2,000 feet, where this drops down to about 500 feet. And the same, once you drop down here, right down in here, it drops down from, once again, 1900 feet down to about 800 feet over here. So, this just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it when I started looking deeper and deeper. I mean, you should see what the black stone has. I'm not going to show it in this round, but maybe in a future video, but the black stone in Mecca and what that shows on it. I mean, it'll blow your mind as we get deeper, and hopefully if I can continue on these videos, see what I'm talking about. But, the elevations work correctly. Even this elevation jumps up in this area where it's supposed to, and it gets up into like the 1800s to 2000s range, and then drops back down into here. And then you have all these very unique, connections when you really look deep into them. It's a little hard to see. Obviously, this is a rock. What I believe this was a blueprint, in a sense, of those who knew what this was. And I think there was some destruction that came here that made it very difficult to live in this area. And so some group decided to use this to start rebuilding in different parts of the world. And I do believe that there was quite the connections and cross-Atlantic sailing and shipping between the Middle East, Europe, and North America, especially in this area. The Phoenicians, Egyptians, Europeans, the Greeks, Romans. I have evidence showing that they've all been here. and obviously Vikings, more modern connections to it. But yes, without a doubt, this is what I believe foundation stone at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Makes quite the nice connection, and I believe a blueprint that was used to start rebuilding Holy Land into the Middle East. Now, some people might think I'm crazy that I'm saying this, but on the right here, this is a image of a petroglyph in Russia, Siberia, where petroglyphs have been found, to date back from 5 to 10,000 BC. This particular one is, I think, dated to about 5 to 6,000 years ago, and goes back to the beginning of the Bronze Age, which, is very interesting because not only does it show what looks to be, a Quebec area and region, and, basically Ontario and some regions up here, which are essentially the Michigan area. And what is important about this, especially when you realize that this is between the Stone Age and the Bronze Age, is that one of the biggest copper mines was found on Isle Royale. I think it is called Isle Royale in Michigan, and that goes back to 4 or 5,000 BC, where there's evidence that copper mining has been going on for a very long time. And how do you get bronze? You get bronze through copper. It's one of the biggest and most important alloys that you need. And you just happen to have you know, a petroglyph in Siberia that seems to be showing the most important pieces of what I'm talking about in locations where I'm certain ancient societies were coming. And there's a lot of biblical connections to certain groups and societies having access to chariots and stuff that were made from bronze and things of that nature. And where did they get that? Phoenicians, and there's a lot of evidence that there were ancient societies coming to this area, and some great videos on that, some great anthropologists that have covered it. Basically coming, not just natives, but actual Europeans. I mean, think about it. The travel going back and forth with just the natural flow. People have taken rowboats nowadays. It's taken them a couple months just to get across in rowboats, by themselves. You're telling me that ancient societies with great ability to sail and cover, who were fantastic sailors all throughout the Mediterranean and different parts of the Atlantic, couldn't go with the tides and just let the tides alone have them come across in a couple months journey or less with sails. I mean, give me a break. Tides go back and forth between Europe and the Americas. I mean, to think that that's not possible, especially if there were more land masses and islands with lower water at one point. Now, the Epic of Gilgamesh. These are dated back, I think, to about 1300 BC's, late BC's, coming close to the 80s, if I remember correctly. I'll show you in just a little bit the Epic of Gilgamesh. I think this one's from 1300 BCE. But basically, why am I showing this? Because I'm certain that these are not only have the story of Gilgamesh, Epic of Gilgamesh, but they're showing you where it actually took place. And then you get into things like talking about, the Epic of Gilgamesh, about cedar wood and stuff like that, which is prevalent in certain parts of the Eastern Canada. But take a look at this. There's a couple that we'll go into here. So this particular piece, there's a lot of different pieces, and this one I think is in the shape of essentially Quebec area. And once again, I think there were some water differences and stuff, but you can see even kind of the inlets, how you would do it if you had to do it on a piece of rock. But you see connections up here. You see this connection. I mean, this is the pretty amazing connection here, right up in here, right? Then you also have that point comes out here. That point. And you have this right here, just right here. Then you also have this piece coming down that you can tell, basically. Now, this is circled because this is a very important piece, this general area. This is highly important to where we're going. And this is all in the land of the First Nation, different tribes of the First Nation, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But another piece of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, once again, this is from 1300 century. This is housed in Germany. I'm sorry, it's a tablet from Turkey, they say. Now, check this out. Now it makes quite the map of Newfoundland, right by New Brunswick, and here's Quebec area. But you have the different pieces. Once again, this is you even have this piece. Now, one of my favorites is you can see this point here, just like this point right there. And then if you look closely, you even see this and this piece right here. But for some, that's hard for them to believe because they think a lot of this is done in the Middle East, and these were found in the Middle East. And I'm not disagreeing; these are probably found in the Middle East, but were they brought there? Were they used as maps, hidden maps, to be able to come back to a territory that they knew was highly important for both our history, but also for relics and for very precious agriculture, for wood, for shipping, for agricultural, for food and medicines that you don't see in the Middle East. And one very highly important thing, gold and precious metals. Guess where the biggest gold mines are? In Canada and in Quebec. Even to today, that's the case. I already showed this one, so let's move forward. Now, this one blew my mind because essentially this was shared with me from somebody who lives in the Quebec region. Now, if you get really close, and we will in a little bit, you can see some ancient writing here. It's like a combination of, looks like ancient Hebrew, some Masonic writing. There's different opinions. I've seen some people talk about this in a different chat, but the individual who shared this with me, it lives in Quebec. I'm not going to say where this was found, but it's high up in the mountains, and swears that that people who live there have no idea when this was put there. And we do feel that there was some recent updates to this. This doesn't look, as old as these pieces of it. This looks like somebody did some outline with like a spray paint or something, but could be wrong on that. But what's absolutely amazing is this particular image is in the Roman catacombs, and it comes with a little piece. We'll talk about it. I don't show it in this particular image, but there's a little clay piece that comes with the clay or some kind of I'm not sure exactly what it's made from, but it's an important piece. It's usually is right here when it's shown, but I had to take a specific image and use it for a reason. But this is in the Roman catacombs, this particular image here. And it's called Moses hitting the rock. Now, this is from somewhere between 100 and 300 AD that this is dated to in the Roman catacombs. Now, let's take a real close look at this. And not only do we have the beard, we have an image of what looks like the face of Jesus, like we do here, but we have kind of that kind of morphed face. Now, when I did research on this and figured out what this was, I realized this was a map. This is a map of Quebec City area and the surrounding areas. But what blew me away and how I figured out this was not new on this side that somebody just put up in the mountains for no reason up in Quebec. But when I figured out it was a map, and then I told the individual where it was, who shared it with me, where it was pointing to the two main locations, it blew him away because one of them was so close to where he found this. And the only thing I knew was that this was found somewhere in Quebec. He didn't tell me where. until later. And when I showed him how it worked to be a map, it blew him away how close I was to the location of this particular piece of it. But also, what you don't see, but there's a hand that goes up here. It's like literally right here, like the hand of the cursor. And that takes us to one of the most important, if not the most important, holiest places, in my opinion, on Earth. But one really important thing is you can see the formation of the rocks in a image in the Roman catacombs from 100 to 300 AD with the image of Christ here. And then you also have some very unique connections on how they hid what this is. Even the triangles and stuff that come up in here, and this piece kind of coming down. You can see, but the cracks. You can see the perfect alignment for the cracks in the different locations that they're supposed to be. But anyway, let's go to the next. Now, why is that important? This was the little clay, or I'm not sure what this is made of. That's the piece I was trying to talk about. That was that comes with that image when you see it sometimes in the Moses hitting the rock image. This little piece is usually shown next to it, like it's supposed to be with it, and it should, because where this is going to take us to is a particular area where I found this particular location, this is a cove. Now, this cove is so highly important. I know it's hard to see, but I'm telling you, this cove is going to take us to what the first temple of Solomon and the first area of ancient Jerusalem that was destroyed by the Babylonians. It was actually rebuilt not too far away at the same area. The next temple and Jerusalem, and which we're going to focus on, which was during the time of Jesus, and then destroyed again by the Romans. And then there was one more Jerusalem that was built, and it was still around, I believe, from what I can tell, in the 500s ADs, when Persians came in, and I'll show you some connection to Persians, but we'll get into that deeper into the future. But just wanted to show some real quick connection to this little clay piece that really opened up this particular area. Now, I'm not going to show you where there it is just yet. We'll get into that later on, but blew me away when I found it. Now, this is a very important map, and the reason for that is because it's one of the most ancient maps of Jerusalem and the Holy Land, including different parts. I mean, if you look at this is supposed to represent, what is this area in here is supposed to be like the Garden of Eden. But I'm going to show you a closer up part of how these lakes and rivers and this particular piece right here connect so amazingly into Quebec. It blows your mind. But this is called the Hereford Cathedral's Mound. Mappa Mundi. And this is a map of ancient Jerusalem from 1300 AD. Now let's go closer. Now this is Quebec, part of Quebec area. This is like, it always screws me up because I'm looking at it upside down. So this would be more west side of Quebec area versus the east side over here. And this would be north going this way versus south. But you can literally see the big rivers, and I guess these might be lakes. I'm not exactly sure, but this blew my mind. Look at this. It's right here. Look at that. It goes straight down, just like this does, and it's all in the right place where it should be. Absolutely blew my mind. Now, before we go too much deeper, some information about Quebec that you may not know and surrounding area is that Quebec has essentially Solomon Temple Islands. It has a Mount Babel. It has the Plains of Abraham. It has a Nazareth. It also has a Magog, and just south in Ontario, just south of Quebec, you also have Jericho, and you have a Garden of Eden. No doubt, there's an actual Garden of Eden in Ontario, Canada. And if we go back here, and I'm saying Jerusalem's in here, and this is, see later on, the Garden of Eden should be up here, which is the Ontario portion or location where it should be. Now, I'm not sure if that's supposed to truly be the Garden of Eden, or if that's representation of where they thought it was at that time. But yeah, it gets pretty deep. The deeper you go, it's more amazing. Now, I want to show you this map before we move into the next one, which is, I think, in my opinion, the most important map of this entire thing. And it's this map right here. Now, why is this so important? Well, because this is a map, the oldest map of Jerusalem known, and it dates to about 600 AD time period, between 600 to 700 AD, and it's the Madaba mosaic map. Now, the Madaba mosaic map was partially destroyed, and they had to piece it back together. But the piece like this one, where it's a whole piece, because I think with the way that they pieced it back together after a larger, supposedly an earthquake, I think it could have just been destroyed purposely to hide evidence of some changes. But it could have been an earthquake. Who knows? But in my opinion, this is one of the most important pieces, and you can tell that this piece is whole. It's not patched back together like some of the other ones that you'll see if you look at that map. But basically, this map is the oldest map of Jerusalem. Now, when we go to a specific place that's right outside of Wimatoche and Waymont, Quebec area, it makes such the nice, amazing connection to this particular map. It's supposed to be Jerusalem. Now, in this, Jerusalem's supposed to be right here, okay, and Bethlehem is supposed to be right here. Now, as you can see, just the connections to the map, you have what is like the boot or the foot and the leg. It's the foot and the leg. It's right here. You can see that. You have this section right in here, like the arrow. You come down here, you see almost a perfect match to what this is right here. Okay, you see this up in here, same connections, same look. And you even have a little bit harder up here, but you can see this part that goes up, and then down. But just keep in mind, this is supposed to be Jerusalem area. Okay, and this is once again supposed to be Jerusalem. This is supposed to be Jerusalem in this area. Okay, and it's going to blow your mind in just a second. And then this is supposed to be Bethlehem. So let's show you what we find in terms of maps and how it connects to this area. So maps of Jerusalem um, and how it connects to this map. And once again, this is right outside of Waymont, Weymont, or Wimatoche, Wemotaci. I think it is Wimatoche. Sorry, I'm probably saying it incorrectly. Wimatachi, but on the land of the First Nation. Um, and it makes the oldest map of Jerusalem makes quite the connection here. Now let's go take a look at some maps of Jerusalem, some ancient maps of Jerusalem, and see what that does. Now the first one I'm going to show you here is a Jerusalem map from 1728. Okay, this map is from 1728, and it's essentially a map of Jerusalem. And look how right where Jerusalem is supposed to be on where I pointed out in my last map. Look at the connection. Okay. Now, doesn't it look like there's tons of roads and all these what used to be buildings and it's really interesting if you go into history and you start reading about things about how Jerusalem is supposed to be completely destroyed and even I don't want to get too much in this because in my opinion this was the Jerusalem after the Romans destroyed during Jesus's time, and Jesus talking about in the Bible that it would be destroyed completely. But this is the one that was built after, and I believe this was standing as the final Jerusalem in this area up until a specific time period. But totally see the connections. I mean, it's just people say this is forestry work. This whole area is just it's such an amazing connection, and you have roads and everything that just are leading into just this entire area. You'll see some in just a little bit, but you see how this makes quite the amazing connection, not just to the landmarks and stuff, but like a perfect connection to everything that's in here, and even how it's all sliced up through roads and everything. Now, interesting, right? Because this looks like it's all sand filled. Well, I'm going to show you one that looks just like it. That actually comes from 1600s. That it shows the complete opposite. So this is a map of Jerusalem. That's pretty much the same thing, right? But this is from the 1600s, and this particular one was from Dino Amico, AMICO. I think it is from 1677. It essentially is another map of ancient Jerusalem, and you can see how green it is, right? Which, going back to this, looks much more like this, right? Even have this connection over here to the greenage. This is all green with like hills and rolling hills and streams and everything that we see in this picture right here. Streams and rivers and roads and green all around. So how did it go from this green to what looks like all sand and from 1600 to 1700? This is 1700s and this is 1600s. It just doesn't make any sense. So, but I'll just take it one step closer. You can see the same location and how it connects, and how this one looks just like what it should look like. You even have the connections in here, and streams and everything. Basically, it looks exactly like this particular area. Um, so anyway, pretty incredible, right? Now let's move forward. Now I showed you where Bethlehem is supposed to be. Now when we go to this area right outside Wimatochi and Waymont, look what we get. This is a map of Bethlehem, and we have exactly what it should look like. This is this particular uh, Bethlehem. Um, if I can get to my notes, Bethlehem is from Booker and the DBES. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry, Debes. It's from 1912, which was interesting. It's much later than I thought. We'd get some of this stuff, but I'm certain that certain well-connected people to secret societies know about this truth, and you can see this connection amazingly. Especially with this right here, this connection. And then you have up here this connection, and even down here where you have this, right? It's quite amazing for sure. But let's keep going because there's more for Bethlehem, right where it should be, right where the map was showing me to look. Now, look at this connection. This is from essentially 1752 with, it's called the joining of the Magi in the Trinity. It's a depiction of Bethlehem. Um, and it makes such an amazing connection to the formations right where we're supposed to be looking, especially this area right here. I mean, give me a break. You can even see the hills coming down. You can see where it's supposed to go down here. Over here is what this used to be built up on. From what I can tell, it's a perfect kind of piece. And we'll show you another image of here. But look at this. I mean, it's spot on. I mean, it's exactly what it should look like. I mean, that's insane. It was, how is that possible for all these connections of Bethlehem if it wasn't the truth in what I'm saying? I mean, you can't make this many connections this easily in the places we're supposed to look if it wasn't true. Now look at the next one. This next one is another one of Bethlehem, and it's from 1842. It's called The Holy Land. It's Bethlehem, the Holy Land by David Roberts, and from 1842. But you can see it right here. I mean, the piece coming down. You can see the connection over here and how it basically looks exactly the same. You have this kind of piece that goes down here, down up in here, but this is essentially the exact same looking piece. And it's a little hard to see right now because the snow and everything. But it makes quite the connection to another location, which we're supposed to be looking at based off of the the map, the oldest map of Jerusalem and Bethlehem um, known to exist today. Now, this is a map. I'm sorry, this is a flag of the Micmac or Mi'kmaq. I'm not sure exactly how to say it correctly, and apologies if I'm missaying this. But they are a First Nation tribe, um, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because very interesting that their flag has a cross. It also has a crescent moon and star. Um, Now, if you go to the Bible and you look up Ezra 2, and you know Ezra 2, it starts talking about essentially um, the children in captivity, which have been carried away from this area or from the Holy Land, of different parts of the Holy Land by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and carried away unto Babylon, and came again unto Jerusalem. And then it breaks down into different chapters the different pieces of Ezra 2, Ezra 2, and I'm looking at the King James Version of the Bible, and you go down to number verse number 27, and it literally says, "The men of Michmas, Michmas, and 122." Micmac and Michmas sound so close to one another. It just blew me away when I saw that. Um, it just jumped out at me because I had been researching this, and then I was just listening and researching the Bible as well to make connections. But look at the Knights Templar connection to Micmac. Now, we've had a look at the Mi'kmaq nation flag, and once again, Mi'kmaq are a First Nation tribe located mainly up in Quebec, but also goes down to Maine area and territory. Now, this connection to the Templar battle flag was brought to my attention from some fellow researchers who have done some great work into the identification of languages and locations throughout the Americas, especially in the US and Canada, that have biblical names. And they have a very unique view of Florida and the Gulf being the Fertile Crescent. They also brought to my attention the connections of the Templar battle flag to the Mi'kmaq nation flag. Now, as I had mentioned in Ezra, there is a connection in the actual name in Ezra 2:27, and even though it seems to be a Q, it's actually pronounced Mi'kmaq, if I am correctly pronouncing it. If not, I apologize. But if this doesn't put an icing on the cake and a cherry on top to the potential of what I'm saying, I'm not sure what will. I mean, the only difference is which side of the flag that they have the star and the crescent moon. Exact colors, the exact cross. All they do is switch which side the star and the crescent moon is located. And this is huge. And it isn't even biblical because it is discussed in the Bible that tribes of Israel will be in this land and will inherit this land. And to say that tribes that are the potentially lost tribes of Israel are still in this land is quite biblical to me. Now, I do believe that lost tribes of Israel, have been pushed out and sent all over the world. Once again, that is very biblical. But to see this flag and to know that there had to have been some connections to the Templars and to the Mi'kmaq Nation is mind blowing and tells me that what I'm talking about and the potential for where the true Jerusalem, the true biblical Holy Land, being in North America and especially up in Quebec area, where I've been pointing to and will continue to go deeper into in this video and in future videos. Now, I've been working so hard to figure out the date of this particular map. I can't figure out where it is and when it was built, but essentially it's a map of the Holy Land, and it's supposed to represent ancient times, including showing where Abraham stops. It has Shechem, uh, Gilgal, Bethel. It even shows the Jordan River. And what's pretty amazing about this is, when you really align this to where I am saying Jerusalem is located, out of Wimatochi and Waymont, essentially, if you are to align just like this, the line there, that the connections are mind blowing. I mean, especially you even see this and mass connection right in here. That just blew me away. I couldn't believe it. And for, then a little bit harder to see certain pieces of it, but if you look close enough, they're all there. But this is essentially mapping Abraham's walk from Bethel up to Shechem, or back, and including a location that he set up an altar, um, and where Canaan is located. And many people will, there's videos and stuff out there that you can find that many people saying that Canaan is Canada, and the ancient Canaanites came from Canada. Now, obviously, there's people who would disagree with that, but there's some great videos out there on YouTube that show that. So Abraham built an altar, and which is really interesting because there's so many altars. Like there's all these rock formations that are found high up in the Quebec areas, up in the woods and up on hills, and they look exactly like Canaanite altars for worship. And some of those altars have ancient Celtic writing that goes from like 100 AD, which is very interesting because there's actually a prophet that's buried in Ireland. Of course, I'm forgetting the name of which one, but but anyway, you can do just a quick search on YouTube, and you'll be able to find that there are rock formations all over Quebec area, and they look like they're ancient buildings or ancient mounds, and some of them look exactly like Canaanite altars, worship altering, that they were using to do sacrifices, animal sacrifices and stuff, But anyway, this blew me away because I think it's showing, if I'm correct here, and bear with me, but I believe what it's showing is that the Lake Saint Jean, which is here, Lake Saint Jean, is possibly the original and real Sea of Galilee. And if that's the case, with the Jordan River coming up like this and splitting off, the northwest feeding portion of the Jordan River could be the Mistissini River. I completely botched how you say that, so my apologies. But which comes exactly where it should be. It comes up right up out of here and goes all the way up to this area, just like this does. Then it splits off right about right here, just like this does. Goes two directions. It's quite amazing, the connections. But the most amazing thing is, when I was lining this all up and stuff, I wasn't really sure where Wimatoche was located. I was just trying to line up this with the, what I was pretty sure was, Sea of Galilee, because this is what made the most sense. And I saw this up here, and I was like trying to make the connection. Then I had to do a search and deeper dive, and I was like, holy crap, St. Jerusalem's right here, and guess what? Wimatoche and Waymont are right here. Now, during the time of Jesus, this is a map of showing basically the city of Herod the Great, and this is Jerusalem during the times of Jesus, as you can read right here. Right? Jerusalem, the days of Jesus. Now, this is right across from Waymont, Eymont, and you can see quite the connections to this particular area. You got this hill right up here. You can even see the outline closer to where a temple or some structure was located. Now, um, you know, remember that the scripture was that, what Jesus said was that the man, excuse me, that uh, said unto him, seest thou these great buildings, and there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And I believe that's what we're looking at here, where there's no stone still left of what was built during Jesus's time. But we have this piece that's going down. Okay, we have this surrounding piece right here, and then part of it's water has taken on, and I think that has been some of it more recently. But there's so many connections, including this. And there's a couple other past, some other images of maps of ancient Jerusalem during Jesus' time that actually show this within here, a little bit better. But I want you to just know this particular area, because we're going to go a little deeper dive into this. I want you to see where I'm saying the actual location is for ancient Jerusalem during Jesus' time. Now let's go to the next one so you can see. Now you can see the outline on top of that hill once again here. Okay. Now you can see the outline on top of that hill, basically squared, just like this is squared. It's flat, and you see another squared thing that's like the squareness of this in terms of the same dimensions. But this blew me away. Look at this back here. You have the valley, and you have this. I mean, it's right there. It's literally right there. These rock formations that are supposed to be there. I mean, look at this. It's going down, just like this going down. So, and as I was saying, you can see this a little bit better. See that? Basically, the starting of what was the mound or whatever, or an area for this particular bridge that they had created, and it just drops down like it should. You can see the drop. You can see how it goes this direction and starts going down this direction just like it should. Now let's go deeper. So once again, this is ancient Jerusalem. This is essentially, once again, representation of ancient Jerusalem during the time of Jesus. And this particular, I wanted to show this because once again, it shows how green the area is supposed to be. I don't know. It's very interesting that all we see is a lot of where's all the sand? These are green. This is all green. This isn't sand. This isn't a desert. This is green. Now take a look where it's supposed to be and how it connects. Look at this. Now take a look. Look at this. This piece right here, the turn, and how it's supposed to go down. I mean, you can see it. It's right here. Look at this. It's all right here. Once again, it's supposed to be up here. Supposed to be up here, right where it should be. You have this piece that comes around and down. And it's mind-boggling. You have this piece that here, just like here. And it looks just like, I mean, you could see it. This is the hill piece right here. Just like this. And you can see how green it is. Green. You can see this back here. See it? I mean, and these rolling hills back here. All green. I mean, I don't see that. You go to modern day Jerusalem. Now, this is so important because we're going to get into the crucifixion. And once again, we were looking at right here on this last image and right in here. Now, check this out. This is from Benjamin West. We'll show a couple of his paintings. But Benjamin West was an artist from the late 1700s and he lived in London. And when did the UK and the British take control of Quebec and Canada? Well, late 1700s, and he's from 1700, late 1700. This is like 1790s or something like that when he created this particular, which is called the crucifixion. Now, take a look here. Not only do we see this formation down here, okay, see it right in here, okay, but you see the C structure up here, which is so key and important because we'll get into that in just a second. See it right up here. Now, those of you that know what or know your biblical history or know information, the location that Jesus was crucified in the Bible was called Calvary, or also known as Golgotha. And Golgotha means Skull Hill, right? And I mean, now take a look at the C, right? Remember, this is Benjamin West from London, lived in London, just happened to be, able at the time to, if he wanted to, because the English controlled Quebec and Eastern Canada after the French and Indian Wars. After the war with Britain, and they took over this area in the late 1700s. And basically, he had the potential. He could have come up here and actually documented this in imagery. And you'll see in this one as well as in some later painting that I believe that's exactly what he did. But once again, keep in mind the C. Now, you may be seeing an image of a skull right here, which I'm going to show you. Check this out. We even have the coordinates. Now, this image is from late 1900s American painter. I'm not going to get into who that is, but I don't know if she knew about this, but I do know that she nailed it, in my opinion. In terms of Skull Hill with these crosses on top, because look what we have here, and looks exactly like a skull, right where it should be, right where Benjamin West was pointing to. This is that C structure that we were looking at, or maybe it's here. It's hard to tell from this angle, but check this out. I'll give you a better angle so you can see the skull. Well, before I do that, so this was done from a French artist in early 1700s who controlled Quebec area in early 1700s. That's right, the French. And this is a French artist, and this is of Golgotha. This is of basically, I think that's what this is called, Golgotha. And we see the connections to the land. Now, the really interesting thing was the topography here. The artist who created this is known by he's a French artist who was known for topography, and I think it was in Cochin, Cochin. Sorry, so N his first name, then his last name is, N dot. I don't have his full first name, just N. So I think that that's his first letter of his first name. or the individual. And the last name is Cochin, and he lived from 1610 to 1686, and he was French. And that's when, guess what? The French had this area, and guess where they did not have, and where they were not, had control, which was modern day Jerusalem in the Middle East, but they did have connections here. So, but you can see this is where the skull is, right where it should be. You got this connection right into the land with what it should be, nice dention in the area. Then you got, check this out. This blew me away right here. Look at that, just coming right down like it should. And then you got this kind of circular area right up in here, right? And the only thing missing is the water flow that would have been through here, or it could have been down in here. But it could be just timing and stuff. But every other piece is there. You have the skull. You have the connections to the land formations, and even this very unique piece right here. But let's go a little closer up so you can see. Now you see this area right here, and you can see that it looks exactly like a skull. So, I mean, a skull right where it should be, right where everything else is pointing to. All right, let's move on. I realize I showed that twice, so let's move on. But once again, this is just a closer up version of what I was talking about, and how Jerusalem is over here, and right where we're looking. This is right where we are. If we look and we believe that the connections to this being the lake, and this being the location of Wimatoche and Waymont, which is what I'm saying. Once again, I guess I added it twice. Sorry about that. But once again, this is where I'm saying Wimatoche is. We're saying where Jerusalem is, just like here. Now, this is another Benjamin West image, the artist from London. And you can see it just makes the most unbelievable connection, in my opinion, to this whole Wimatoche and Waymont area. I mean, you see it. And in fact, I'm seeing a lot more with this kind of rounded image that I'm seeing in a lot of paintings. I'm not going to go into many of them, but then it also has this piece as well. So it's like the surrounded piece like this, surrounding piece, and then this comes through here and then out this way, just like this does. Look at that. But check this out over here. Perfect. Perfect connection. Let me go up in here. You see this up in here. A little bit harder, but it's there. You see these kind of unique formations going like this. They're there. Look at that. You even see this image of this wing right here. See, it goes up, cross. Now the leg here is interesting, right? Because this is like a thigh, right where it should be. Now this is Benjamin West painting. It's a depiction of Adam and Eve. I think being the expulsion of Adam and Eve from paradise is what it's called, and it's from 1791. But once again, an artist from London who had the access to this area, but probably did not have access to what is modern day Jerusalem in the Middle East at that time. Now we're almost done here. Now, I'm just going to give you some teasers going into how deep and how far back this goes, but this is a gold medallion of Justinian I of Constantinople, and as you may know, that was the capital of the Roman Empire in 1527, 1565 at that time. I want you to take a look at this particular gold, and as I had mentioned, the gold, of course, is in the British Museum. Now, the gold is so key and important because this is where I am certain the Solomon's mines are located, where the vast majority of gold was found, truly found. And you know, this is, you're going to see here in a minute how it connects to what I believe is the first location where Solomon Temple was built, and it's, well connected into this. So we have Wimatochi up here. The second, or where, at the time of Jesus, Jerusalem was here, in my opinion. But the first one, in my opinion, once again, was actually in this region over here. And one key thing, we'll find it in a lot of future, hopefully, videos that I do, but in art and stuff, is this particular piece right here, which is kind of like this isn't a good image of it, but it looks, when you look at it from a certain angle, it looks kind of like a crescent moon. And it's so key and important, as well as this particular area. You know how we were talking about that, the location of, basically that small clay piece that had a little inlet. Well, this little inlet right here had a hidden location, from what I can tell, that that allowed for the burying of specific relics and stuff, and hidden stuff that I'm quite certain the Roman Empire found. And I think that's the majority. They found the majority of their old relics and gold and stuff in this area, this general area. But the first temple, as well as first temple, was right here. We'll get into that um, into later videos and stuff, and there's a lot of evidence of that. But you can see just this whole area is just completely, I mean, it's just completely used. I mean, it's been used and abused, and I mean, you can just tell there's just so much, you can tell there was all these like things going on in this area, and it just looks so different than most of Quebec area. If you look through it, you can just tell that there's roads, and there's, the usage of it all over the place, especially in this area, for whatever, for buildings, for agriculture, for living, whatever it might be. But this particular area is the most important, in my opinion, because this is, in my opinion, where the very first temple and the very first Jerusalem was built. The one that got destroyed by Babylonians in like 500 something BC. Now, you can see it. You can see the connections in the coin. See the connections. See, this is going up just like it should, right? Even up in here, you have these. This. Even over here, you have these pieces that are going up and over and down. I could be a little bit off on some of these. It's not easy to do, to figure this stuff out. But there's certain points, there's certain, like, especially this kind of crescent right here, that has been so eye-opening. Then there was also, in this general area, they did a very good job. Google, I'm pretty certain, after I started showing this a while back, there's a lake that's made up, it's like a V-shaped, and I'll show you in future videos how they covered it up, since I started sharing some evidence of this, to take away that V-shaped lake that literally is a V, and it was pointing me to so many different things and helping me with land markers. But anyway, moving on. Now, just to kind of end here, to show you that, and to to set up for next and future videos. It's very important to know that many different cultures were coming into this space, and like the biblical stories that we have, that Persians did come into this land. Well, on the left-hand side here is a First Nation artist, I think Maliseet artist, who makes quite the depiction of what looks exactly like a Persian whirling dervish, right? And spinning with the hat, the big dress, colorful imagery. Now, I'm going to end on this particular one, and hopefully I've opened up your eyes to the possibility. And hopefully in future videos, I'll be able to go much deeper into Greek, Celtic, Vikings, Romans, um, Islam, especially things like the rock, the black stone, and how that connects and ties into Eastern Canada to Iceland. Greenland. But yeah, take it for what it is, and we'll continue on from there. Thank you very much for your time and interest, and I hope I haven't wasted your time, and I hope that, maybe it's opened up your mind to different possibilities that um, maybe we don't know all the truth, and maybe some history has been stolen from us. I'll try to put some videos and stuff as well into the comment section so that you can take a deeper dive into other people's research into what I'm saying as possibly being true, and that the Americas really have connections to Egypt, has connections to the Sumerians, have ancient connections into ancient, once again, Hebrews, Phoenicians, and many different cultures, and believe that things like Tartaria and history has been whitewashed in a sense, or maybe covered purposely through mud floods and resets. So anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Hopefully you enjoyed this.